We're going to spend 45 minutes together or thereabouts talking about the road to resilience. This is a segment that you will find helpful with regard to coaching. That is, coaching your clients and or yourself and finding those often elusive details of motivation. This is an incredibly important aspect of anyone's journey, is that resilience and motivation. And I feel like this will be a very interesting and enlightening webinar, and we'll spend some time together figuring out how to help your clients and yourself make successful and, although challenging, positive steps to becoming their best selves. How do we begin? There was a story, if you know, of Sir Edmund Hillary when he first began to think about climbing the highest peak, Kilimanjaro. He went to the Queen and he needed money to fund his expedition. And Sir Edmund Hillary said, you know, I need to be successful. I really need to get to the top of this peak. He did all the myriad of steps to prepare himself to get to the top of that peak. He did not set his sights on the goal beside the peak or 50 feet from it. No, he set a razor-sharp goal to climb Kilimanjaro and get to the very top of that mountain. And this is what it takes to be successful, is to find your why and to then focus in on what that is. So we all want to discover what is possible. We want to discover what lies dormant in each of us. And the beginnings of everything in life that you ever wanted are already there, living deep inside of you. But for many of us, they're obscured by confusion, by poor habits, and as in my case, by being severely overweight. Well, what was my story? I am an unlikely Cinderella. Some of you may be able to identify with that. My story began, it's 15 years and counting now, but I was a very unwell and obese woman. I weighed 204 pounds at my heaviest, and I was also experiencing symptoms of prediabetes, although I hadn't been diagnosed with that, and also with heart palpitations. And my father had passed away from heart disease. There were some very strong signs here that something wasn't right. So my unlikely Cinderella story began to unfold. And what happened was I set a goal. I made a decision on that very day when I could no longer climb the stairs of my very own house to take care of my children, that this was not acceptable, that this was not any way to live, and that I would never have that joyful opportunity to watch my children grow up. And that fear is what gave me my big why, my aha moment, my reason, my Sir Edmund Hillary wanting to ascend Kilimanjaro. And I had to be very much in touch with the deep desire and longing to be something better than just an overweight, unwell woman. And when I discovered this truth, and when I discovered that there was so much possibility there, it was nearly impossible to turn me off. There was no stopping the goals that I was planning on reaching and the energy that I was putting myself to get there. So I believe deeply in finding your big why. And I want to remind you that my big why is very different than your big why. People will often say to me, Tosca, you know, tell me how, I just want to look like you. I want to do what you do. I want to be you. And I say, no, what you want is you want to be the best version of yourself. So my reason for doing what I do to get to being a lean, healthy woman and experiencing abundance and success in my life is very, very different than yours. Mine is my daughters. Mine is my desire to be with them as they grow up and turn into young women and successful adults and have children, and I see grandbabies and I'm experiencing part of their lives. Your why could be that you need to lose weight for a surgery, that you need to lose weight for a wedding day, that you need to lose weight or become healthier because you want to be pregnant. think of the list of things that you want to do with your life that you aren't doing right now. And one of those will be your big why. Here's a little tip here. What I find incredibly important and helpful is I'm a big fan of index cards. And what I do is I take my index cards and I write down my big why. Tosca Reno, you want to stay healthy and fit and well so that you can be the best version of you long into life, and so you can experience the joy of your daughters and their grandchildren. And I write that on several index cards. I will put one in my purse. I'll put one on a mirror. I'll put one on my computer. I will message myself. And I welcome these messages, and I encourage you to use that tip also, that putting that kind of advice, your big why, on your index card and referring to it as frequently as possible will really help you begin to unveil and honor and own the reason for you wanting to make change, wanting to get to your top level of success. So, the big why. And now that we know what the why is, it's important for us to understand what kinds of tools we need to get there. It's all fine and well that we have this desire that we want to lose weight and get healthy, but we need the right tools. It's like when you want to attach something to the wall and we're trying to hang a picture and that picture is heavy, it weighs 20 pounds. You cannot put that picture up on the wall successfully with a very small nail. You will need, very likely, a drill, and you will need the correct drill bit. You may be drilling into concrete, so you'll need a concrete drill bit. Then you're going to need a plug, and then you're going to need a screw, and then you're going to need the screwdriver and a wire and all kinds of things. And the tools, the right tools to get the job done, always make the job more successful. So we can look at our idea of wanting to make personal and physical transformation and accept that we want the right tools to help us get the job done. Well, what are those? I myself have discovered through my own transformational experience that the tools that worked best for me were eating clean, because I really had limited knowledge of how to nourish myself, exercise, because I needed to do better than just strap on running shoes, and taking care of my emotional health. And I found that using these tools repeatedly on a daily basis guaranteed my success. It guaranteed me reaching my goals to make those physical transformations, to make emotional transformations, to make health transformations. When I appeared on Dr. Oz recently, he called the whole process of eating clean the Eat Clean revolution. I do believe that eating clean has become a revolution. It is now something that it is in the vernacular. And in 2007, when I first began writing about it, it felt like a very new tidal wave of wealth and a new direction of knowledge coming to us about nutrition and how to change how we eat. So the tool of eating clean and this course, the course powered by CanFit Pro, the Eat Clean Foundations, is going to teach you quite a bit about that. But you have to imagine me. Here I was. Again, over 15 years ago, I was an obese woman, and I thought eating was just, well, you go to the grocery store, you fill your cart, you don't think twice about what's going in there, and you go home. And maybe that's what got me into a bit of trouble and got me overweight, is because I wasn't really thinking and making connections about what I was eating and then how it was affecting my body. And I really had to get to a point of understanding that much better. So when I was introduced to the concept of eating clean in order to prepare myself for a bodybuilding show, and that's where I learned about it, it was really quite revolutionary. I was actually going to be eating more, which was shocking to me. I remember my coach telling me, yep, you're going to be eating 6 smaller meals a day and you're going to be eating these specific things, but you will eat nothing processed. Well, I was coming from the world of bagels and muffins and processed meats and dairy and cereals and, sugar-coated everything. And I'm pretty sure that I was a sugar addict, but eating clean was a foreign concept to me. So the idea of focusing heavily on complex carbohydrates, on the healthy nutritional foods that come from many plant-based sources that help to take care of my nutritional wellness, and then pair that with lean protein and complex carbohydrates. Well, this was a massive change for me. It really was. Um, Although I was a vegetable eater, if you will, and I ate my fruit as well, I really began to think about how to work with the fruits and vegetables and build balanced meals as I began to adapt this lifestyle. The best part about eating clean was that I found I wasn't going hungry. When I was hungry, but I always thought that when we had to make physical transformations in our body, it had everything to do with needing to count calories and starve ourselves and all the rest of it. And this just wasn't the case. Every 3 hours, I was reaching for a sweet potato with some raw vegetables and a piece of chicken breast. Or I was having a breakfast of oatmeal with flaxseed and it topped with berries. And my goodness, I just wasn't hungry. And I kept repeating those meals throughout the course of the day and then noting the powerful changes that went along with it. So when I realized that eating clean was a completely essential and critical tool in my toolkit for success and developing health and wellness, there was no way that I was ever not going to do it. And it became something that I adapted to, and 15 years later, am still eating clean. This is what has served me well and will serve you well. Because once again, this could be a story about me because I learned it, but this really is a story about you and perhaps helping your clients get to that place where they want to become their best, their leanest, their healthiest. So eating clean forms a massive component of the personal transformation plan. It's the biggest piece in your toolkit. In fact, it accounts for 80% of your efforts with regard to making physical change. A next critical piece is exercise. Now, I have to say that when I began my own physique transformation, just over 15 years ago, exercise wasn't a massive component for me. I wasn't terribly interested in it, possibly because it seemed that simply lacing up my running shoes and going for a very long run wasn't as satisfactory as I would like it to be. And I need a lot of stimulation, if you will, and change and variety, so there had to be a better way. Round about the same time that I had set my personal goal, my big why of becoming healthier for my children and their grandchildren and for quality of life, I began to embrace exercise in a bigger way. Instead of looking at exercise as punishment, I began to experience exercise very much in a life-saving frame of mind. I wasn't happy with where I was. I wasn't happy being overweight. I wasn't happy feeling ill and beginning to experience symptoms of disease. And I needed to make a change. And it had to be something that I could fit into my lifestyle that would work and that I would adapt to. And exercise really weighed in as the next critical piece of my physique transformation. So while I was doing all that clean eating, while I was nourishing my body with nutrients and minerals and fats and proteins, I was also beginning to make some changes with regard to how I was moving my body. Now, I happen to believe that physical movement is an absolutely essential aspect of the human experience. We have bodies that have been designed for movement. We have arms, we have legs, we have feet, we have hands, we have torsos. We are meant to move those bodies, and that is a purely divine expression of being human. And when we ignore that aspect of ourselves, when we become sedentary and we sit for long periods of time, we begin to remove ourselves from our true human experience. I believe even the experience of being able to make love, hold your child, push someone on a swing, go for a walk, have a swim. run, jump, play, ride a bike, lift weights. These are all expressions of a healthy human being. And so learning how to incorporate exercise into our wellness journey is an absolutely essential piece. And we also now have science to prove that exercise is a critical, life-saving component, not just for the body, but also for the brain. Yes, so Dr. John Ratey wrote a revolutionary book called Spark, which explains that in its basis sense, 30 minutes of exercise performed daily at a maximum heart rate of 60%. Well, CanFit Pro, I think, believes says 75%, and I tend to agree with that. So a maximum heart rate of 75% or higher is absolutely life-saving for the brain. Here's why. We can look at exercise as Miracle-Gro for the brain, because what happens when we exercise is a series of chemical changes in the blood and in the tissues that launch a cascade of neurotransmitters and enzymes and hormones in the brain that essentially help the blood volume and the blood vessels and the blood cells in the brain and the brain tissues grow and increase. So we're increasing the vascularity in the brain so that we have greater synaptic connections. And this, if you think about it, is an incredibly important piece of protecting our ability to think late and long into our old age, if you will. And I, for one, would like to take my brain with me. I think it's wonderful to eat clean, and certainly clean foods will help nourish my brain. And exercise will help me create a lean physique. And if we know now that exercise can help build that powerful brain also, then we need to embrace this. And we need to begin to think of exercise less as punishment and more as an act of self-love. When I began to embrace exercise in that way, learning to love it instead of learning to hate it, that is when I made the greatest physical changes in myself. And I think when I could connect it back to caretaking for myself, and I believe in this expression, self-care is the new healthcare, so learning how to care for myself and putting the responsibility squarely in my hands, that's when I really began to love exercise for more than just going to the gym and sweating, more than just being able to create lean legs and a lean physique. It was for all the other reasons. Learning to love it for the way that I was able to cope better with life and with whatever was thrown at me. So together, those tools, again, eating clean and exercise, are absolutely critical aspects to have in your quiver, in your toolkit, if you will, of making physical and wellness changes. But I want to take it one step further, because I believe that in order for us to really make the transformations that we want to make, we have to embrace another aspect of our wellness, and that is emotional health. Many of us are, if you will, blocked, or we've built a wall around ourselves. We don't want to become in touch with our emotional feelings. We don't want to feel sadness or pain. We don't want to necessarily live to the fullest expression of our happiness. And this actually can be very stifling, and it can destroy health. In traditional Chinese medicine, emotional health and venting or dealing with our emotions is a critical aspect of wellness. In fact, if you do not deal with your emotions will deal with you. And this really trades on that the physics of energy. So when we take care of our emotional health and we work hard to nourish it and express and deal with our emotions, and do that in a number of ways that I'll explain to you, you will be changing the energetic vibrations of yourself so that your emotional health actually improves. Now, here's an interesting anecdote. Some of you know that my late husband, Robert Kennedy, was ill with lung cancer and ultimately passed away from it. It was a very aggressive cancer. Robert was a a stoic person. He didn't really express his emotions all that much and had had quite a lot of tragedy to deal with in his life. So when we learned there was a lung cancer present, the traditional Chinese medicine physician explained to us that that cancer had probably been growing for at least 10 years for it to have become the size that it was. And that makes sense when you go back in the timeline of the events that have happened to Robert, where he experienced some very traumatic things in his life 10 years before his diagnosis with cancer. So you see how the emotional wellness, the positive vibrations, the healing energies are critical pieces of our emotional health. And I encourage you to think of any number of ways that help you deal with your emotions. And I'd like to give you a few tips. So here I would say that emotional health can be dealt with in the gym. I found when Robert passed that my working out and making a steady date with myself to go to the gym and exercise and sweat and get my heart rate up really did help me deal with the negative emotions that were threatening to overwhelm me. So, gym time is you time. Putting yourself first is a critical aspect of self-care because emotionally, if you feel like you're always at the bottom of the list, you may begin to just be satisfied with the dregs of life, with the leftovers, with the crumbs. And when we put ourselves first, it sends a very positive, powerful message to us that we do count. We are important. Now, don't worry if you're the mother of a young child. Children are highly resilient. And when we take care of ourselves first, we become stronger parents emotionally and can deal with any sorts of challenges. Think about the experience in the airplane where when the oxygen mask comes out, what happens is we're not supposed to put the oxygen mask on our child first. No, no, no. We put the oxygen mask on ourselves because what good are we to our children to help them if we are not well oxygenated, if the worst should come to pass? So rather, care for yourself, make yourself a priority. What was also essential for me with emotional health was expressing my emotions and being okay with those emotions, whether they were grief, whether they were anger, whether it was about joy, whether it was about vitality, happiness. But expressing those emotions is absolutely essential to give them a place to to call home, a place where they can live. And then also when you put it on paper or on your computer or sing it or paint it, you have a record of what you've done so that it actually matters. If it lives in our brain only, sometimes we can't give credence to it because we don't think it really exists. So I found that the journaling is an absolutely essential piece to success with regard to these tools that are in your toolkit. And one of the things that I did certainly with my training and eating was using the No Pain, No Gain training journal and just writing down how I felt, what I was doing, my progress, how I was feeling. Were my emotions positive or negative? Was I feeling better after my workout than before? And also support yourself with regard to emotional health by doing the things that make you feel totally alive, the things that give you joy, the things that maybe you hadn't given much thought to. For example, as a young child, I was always interested in writing, and I had allowed that to sort of slip away until I re-embraced the practice nearly 20 years later. And I found that this is a wonderful release for me, is to write. And, sometimes my writing is published, and you've seen that in my books and magazine articles and my blog and working with CanFit Pro. But sometimes I write things purely for myself, and that is also completely healthy. So we've covered the tools: eating clean, exercise, emotional health. And these are powerful strategies to help you find your road to resilience, your path to success. The next thing that I find is an important consideration is when you look at yourself, what do you think? My truth was that in the days when I felt completely paralyzed by my overweightedness and my depression and my anxieties, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. There was absolutely no way that I wanted to see anything about myself. I wasn't sure who I was. I wasn't sure that I liked myself, and I found it incredibly difficult to look in the mirror. But when I found my big why and wanted to commit to healthiness for the rest of my life, I made a point of standing in front of a mirror and looking at myself and coming up with 10 things I was grateful for about me, whether it was gratitude for my eyesight, gratitude for my Dutch genes, gratitude for my blonde hair, gratitude for my brown hair if it's brown one day, gratitude for my hands that work well, for my brain, for my eyes, for my ability to speak. And I found things that I was happy about and things that I could be grateful for. This aspect of being able to practice gratituding, express the things that you're grateful for, is an incredible piece of your resilience story, because you will find that on days when you're struggling, giving gratitude is a wonderful way to help you bring the sparkle factor back into your eyes. So I will confess that, I came from parents who immigrated from Holland who had lived through massively challenging times, including the Nazi occupation in their homeland of Holland. And gratitude was a foreign concept for them for quite a long time in their lives, and I completely understand that. And it was difficult for me to learn the practice of gratitude. It was literally a new skill for me, but I did find that gratitude helped me become more resilient so that I could withstand the hits that life could give me. Now, some of you may know a little bit about my history, but in 2011, my stepson Braden passed away, and then 12 months later, my beloved Robert Kennedy passed away from cancer. And then literally a year later after that, I had to bankrupt Robert's business, and then my business failed, and everything that I knew and had come to enjoy and accept in my life was now broken. And as a result, I became a broken person. And this was horrifying to me, and I struggled to find a way to make sense of it all and to climb out of the darkness, if you will. So I learned from a friend this notion of practicing gratitude, giving thanks for even the smallest thing. And this helped me build and flex my resilience muscles. I also believe that when challenges are delivered to us, these are actually opportunities for us to build muscle fiber, if you will, to build our tolerance fibers, to develop strength so that we can handle hits from life. And by employing those practices, I have been able to not only accept and withstand even, but find the lessons in all the challenges that have been handed to me in the last several years. And this truly is what resilience is all about. Resilience is the ability to bounce back after serious challenge, and to bounce back with courage and with intelligence so that you will be well prepared for the next time to go forward. Think about it. You're swimming across the lake. It's a long, heavy lake. The waves are choppy. You got cement boots on. It's a heavy struggle. You're getting tired. You're running out of oxygen. You don't even know why you're doing this anymore. And yet, to turn back would make no sense. You're already in the middle of the lake. Turning back is like quitting, but going forward, knowing that you're going to be swimming that same distance anyway, but you're going to get to the other side. And who knows what's on the other side? That is resilience. So we can all practice this. And we all have the ability within ourselves to give ourselves permission to be resilient and to accept what life is giving us and to go forward nonetheless. And this is a valuable lesson that you can put to practice when you're beginning to shape your transformational journey. And 100%, anybody who has been successful in life has had challenge, has had to be resilient. When anybody has had challenges, for example, we can go back to Sir Edmund Hillary. He didn't make his ascent perfectly on the first go, or even the second one. It took several tries. He didn't get all the funding from the Queen to even complete the journey. It took several tries. And what you will find that is the most outstanding quality of any leader, from Donald Trump to Buddha to Gandhi to Newton to Obama to anyone you want to name, to sports players, what you will find their most abundant and glaring quality is this ability to be resilient and to accept what has been given them and go forward nonetheless with knowledge, making change based on those challenges. So I think this is an incredible thing we can take away with us. And remember that when Michael Jordan was named as the basketball player of the year and numerous times and the legend in basketball, he even himself said, remember, you saw the goals I made, the many points I scored for my teams, and there may have been hundreds, but you didn't see the hundreds of thousands of nets I missed. And so that's a very interesting thing to think about, that success isn't always a one-shot deal, that we have to keep at it with a bit of grit in order to succeed. I love this quote by Michelangelo Buonarroti. And this has to do a little bit with the blue sky. You know, when you're sitting in your office and you turn around and you look out the window and you have a look at the sky and you daydream a little bit. And what Buonarroti said was, the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving nothing. I have to say that before I made my physical transformations for myself, and I'm talking about the days when I was a 204-pound ill woman, I really didn't have my bar set very high. And I think I almost felt comfortable in keeping it low because then I didn't have to try very hard to get where I wanted to go. But we realize that when we stay too much in our comfort zone, there's no possibility whatsoever to achieve anything great. And deep inside of me, I had always wanted to achieve something great. I wanted to write books. I wanted to write a book that would be of note. I wanted to make a difference. And all those things happened when I set my bar high enough that I was able to get over it, but not too low that it didn't require some effort. It was when I accepted the challenge to compete in a bodybuilding contest for the very first time at the age of 42. And it was actually stunning to me that I could even do it in the first place. I was terrified, but I did it. And I absolutely enjoyed the process of getting to know myself. Was it hard? Yes. Did I have to go hungry? Yes. Did I have to train hard? Yes. Did I hurt? Yes. Was I exhausted? Yes. Did I think some days, why am I doing this? Did I get discouraged? Absolutely. But at the end of it all, I wanted to achieve something great for myself, something different. When I wrote my first book, did I think it was challenging? Yes. How could I write and share my story and get my message across to people? But I did it anyway and put the hours in, and then another, and then another, and then the New York Times status. And that was just an incredible high for me. And now I know that anything, even the smallest thing that we want to achieve in our lives, can be accomplished simply by believing it to be so and achieving it. We can't afford to miss our mark when setting our goals to summit our own peaks. We absolutely must set the bar and go for it. And if you fail a couple of times, so be it. Some of the most accomplished persons in our lives have failed numerous times, as mentioned before. And yet, they have still found success because they've had the courage to keep on going. So again, when we talk about Sir Edmund Hillary, he didn't set his compass point beside Mount Everest in Nepal when he made his decision to summit this almost 30,000 foot peak. No, he set his compass point to go to the top, and that is what he did. So I encourage you to blue sky your dreams, your ideas, your thoughts. I encourage you when you're standing in the gym lifting weights, even to try the heavier weight, to put down the 10-pound dumbbells and pick up the 15s, or maybe even the 20s. You know, you might surprise yourself. You might be able to do a couple of those reps, and that will be a goal and a victory for you on that day. So surprise yourself, blue sky yourself, set your goal for something higher and go for it. You know, even me making my changes in my life, I was really not a fitness candidate. At the age of 40, who was I? I got my first oxygen cover at 43. I didn't sit down and think, no, this is impossible for me. It's not for me because I'm not 20 years old. It's not for me because I've already had children and maybe my body will never get back to its leanness of my youth. I didn't think any of those things. I thought how exciting it would be to find out what it would be like, and I'm going to set my goal to go there. Whether or not I accomplish that, I am still going to try because I want to find out what it feels like to go there. And I never wanted to accept less. I always wanted to accept more. I wanted to challenge myself and pit myself against any of the most difficult strategies that I possibly could and the most difficult challenges because I wanted to go past my sticking point. So unveil that for yourselves and find your beauty, find your truth, find your blue sky, find your peak, summit it. You'll get there. And I also encourage you, remember that little exercise that I gave you of looking in the mirror and maybe learning to love and accept yourself for who you are and finding the bits of you that you love, you know, your writing ability, your amazing eyes, your hands, maybe you're a hand model, your ability to run fast, maybe you're a marathoner. Maybe you can marathon and juggle, which is called joggling, and be a Guinness World Record holder like Mikkel Kapril is. Maybe you're all of those things and there's nuggets of you and gems inside of you that need to come out. You are not the limitation. You are not built with limitations. You were built with a wide open sky, a universe of endless possibilities, and you are the invitation to your future. You are the invitation to what is possible for you in this life. When I made my physical changes, and again, this was 15 years ago, I was coming from a physically abusive marriage. I was coming from being a very subdued, depressed, overweight, angry, upset person. I did not think there were possibilities at all, but I did that little visit with myself in the bathroom with the door shut in front of the mirror, and I examined what the possibilities were inside of me, and that's when I reached out and I grabbed the hope, the rope of hope, if you will. I reached out and pulled myself out with believing in myself, knowing that I had a good brain, knowing that I could write, knowing that I was strong, knowing that I was physically capable, knowing that it was possible to make change. And so, again, you are not the limitation to your life. You are not defined by it. You are not created by it. You are the invitation. You are infinitely capable of changing your life and making it happen for yourself today. You don't even have to wait. You can make a simple, small change today, and you will already be different. You will already be better. I want to thank you for spending this time with me, Tosca Reno, and talking about resilience and the road to success. I hope that you find that these points, these stories, these revelations will help you find greater success in your life and working with your clients. I wish you well.